Oh, are there behaviors in Americans that you noticed and thought, this is exactly Islamic ethics? A lot of times I say the habits that they have as Westerners originally came from Islam. When you look at the ethics and the morals, it's very Islamic. The ethics of the Christians has completely changed in morals. Abortions are fine, the divorces are fine, the gender issues are fine. Islam is very concerned about the other. Alcohol is not just about what's haram for you, it's they're haram for the people around you. What are some of the funniest misconceptions about Muslims or Islam? There are many hilarious misconceptions. They ask women, like, do you sleep in that? Do you shower in that? My favorite and the most annoying question is, where are you from? I'm like, oh, here we go. Did you ever experience discrimination wearing hijab? Some friends of ours went in a restaurant that was owned by a Muslim woman, a hijabi Muslim woman, with a table of Muslims, and their family sat down. And the table next to the Americans said, we're leaving. We're not going to sit in here with people like this. And it's like, excuse me, it's owned by a Muslim woman. Assalamu alaykum. Today we're going to answer some questions that were collected from our viewers on the internet. Let's start. And first question. Did you ever experience discrimination wearing hijab? One time we were in a restaurant, some friends of ours went in a restaurant that was owned by a Muslim woman, a hijabi Muslim woman, but she was not in the premises that night. And a table of Muslims and their family sat down. And the table next to the Americans said, we're leaving. We're not going to sit in here with people like this. And it's like, excuse me, it's owned by a Muslim woman. My favorite, though, I was in a little cafe with another friend of mine who was also from the upper Midwest. We're like, I'm Dutch background, she's German. And we're talking about how the demographics are changing because Muslims have a lot of babies where the West is slowing down and people are converting. So we're saying probably in the future that the Muslims are going to outnumber other people. And there was another lady, an only other lady in the cafe. She said, I've been listening to what you're saying and I just want to, say something. And she looks around, she's as the only white woman in the room. And I'm like, I look at my friend, I said, sit down. And I said, why did you say that? Well, she said this. I said, so this makes me not white anymore? This changed my ethnicity? She's, like everybody has to be brown if you're wearing this. And she worked for the university. We said, sit down. Like jokingly, sit down. We need to talk to you. This is ridiculous. I mean, do you hear what you're saying? I'm not white anymore? Like, what happened? And of course, she's thinking brown people. And she was very tan, by the way. My friend Suzanne and I are much whiter because she's tan. We just laughed at her. We didn't get mad. We just laughed. Like, stop and think of what you're saying. This changed my brain waves? But it was funny. And mostly we laugh. Like every time we get together, like, I'm the only white one in the room, and everybody laughs. I've told so many stories about this and people just they get mad or they laugh. What are some of the funniest misconceptions about Muslims or Islam? For example, like the misconception that in Islamic marriage, the husband does not give his wife a say. There are many hilarious misconceptions, and sometimes instead of getting angry, you just have to laugh. They ask women, like, do you sleep in that? Do you shower in that? They assume immediately someone's making you wear it because no woman in her right mind would cover herself, right? This is their concept as Westerners. After a while, it's funny. We choose this. I'm sorry, we choose it. We've had people come up to say, you don't have to wear that here. It's like, well, yeah, I do. Seriously, okay, I'm in this country now. Your religion doesn't matter anymore. It's not about that. It's your belief system. It's your identification. My identification in the world is, first of all, a Muslim woman. And I'm very happy to go out in my hijab, and I'm recognized as a Muslim woman and said, yes, I'm very proud of that. Come on and ask me about it. I feel like I'm a walking dai in a way. I'm wearing hijab. Ask me. I try to be very open with people, smile, encourage questions. And people are often very shy to ask, but please ask. Don't just give me the look. My favorite and the most annoying question is, where are you from? I'm like, oh, here we go. Texas. Before that, Wisconsin. Before that, your parents. I said, they were born in Wisconsin. Before that, okay, grandparents Dutch, grandparents Russian. They're not hearing anything Middle East, or they're so confused. Okay, I'm a convert, revert, whatever. But it's funny. They go through the drill. Like, oh, here we go, for the umpteenth millionth time. But you have to be patient. Mostly, I do a lot of talking about women's rights in Islam. I'm asked particularly this topic when I speak. And I always start off, I show the pictures of all that they show on the internet, black, Muslim women, oppressed, depressed, repressed, suppressed. What do you think? And I tell all the rights we have, and I'm this kind of crazy, outspoken, outgoing, happy woman. And at the end, I go back to that again. I said, oppressed, depressed, repressed, suppressed. What do you think? They're like, no, no, no. So we have an old audience that changes their mood and their opinion after an hour of a short talk about Islam and women's rights. Do you have any funny moments related to wearing the hijab? For instance, not knowing how to wear it properly at first. I had to get out of the music business, so what am I going to do now? I had done temporary work before becoming Muslim to add income to my singing income until I was singing full time. So I went back to temporary work, and there was a company, actually a Muslim man that I knew from my community said, there's an opening at my company, come and apply. I was in Wisconsin. There was no hijab, no jilbab, no abaya. So I would find long dresses and wear a pair of pants underneath them, but no hijab yet. So I went into the interview with a human resources guy and I said, you'll notice I dress differently. And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm going to dress like that. I've recently become a Muslim. And I said, I do intend to put a scarf on my head. If you have an issue with that, tell me now. No hard feelings. I'll just leave the interview. But tell me now that you might have an issue with that down the road because I have the intention to put it on. And he's like, no problem. I said, okay, fine. So I started working and wearing my unusual clothing. It was like an American dress with pants. I had 2 co-workers and I was telling them I was having issues with my mom. She didn't want me to wear it. She's giving me a hard time, and my brother. I said, but I want to wear it. And one day I went off for Jummah prayer and I said, I'm going to do it. I wore it I got in the car, put it on, and then came back to the office looking at them. They said, oh, you did it. Congratulations. My boss came in and she said, anybody gives you any flack, you send them to me. And later in the day, the CEO was walking past our office and he looks at me and he said, you feeling a little cold today? And that was like his okay. And he winked at me and went to his office like, alhamdulillah, everybody accepted. Which verse of the Quran has impacted you the most? Particularly, a very short part of an ayah says, and Allah is with you wherever you are. That was very comforting to me, that Allah is always close to me. Further verses in the Quran elaborate that Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein. He knows our thoughts, our feelings in our heart, so forth. That Allah is there not so much as a presence like waiting to see if you make a mistake, but He's there. He's there. He knows what you're going through. He's there to turn to. He's there to be asked. And in dua, He's also there to be remembered and thanked and praised. So this verse was always very special to me. I think I chose the name Noor based off of this, that Allah will give you a light by which to light your way. A very beautiful path that Allah is again with you all the way, and He will illuminate your path. If you read the Quran, Allah illuminates your path. What is clear, truth is clear from falsehood, the right thing is clear from the wrong, and so forth. So it's very impactful.
Do you have a story that relates to this and to this ayah that you found comfort and strength?
I had met another young convert after I had become Muslim for a while, and she wanted to come and take her shahada, and she wanted to go back to another state where she'd first met Muslims. So we traveled together, and we were in a hotel that room that night, and she was crying because she said, I don't know how I can become Muslim. I made so many mistakes in my life. Several things that had happened to her. And I said, I read this ayah to her, that, Allah will give you these 2 special gifts, that He will enlighten your path, but He will always He will forgive you. I said, as far as we know, it's done. When you take the shahada, whatever you're worried about is done. It happened in the past. It no longer is on your list of deeds. She cried. She was so taken aback and relieved that she felt she could take her shahada without any regrets or remorse or worries that how could she be a Muslim.
Think about the darkest moment in your life. Now imagine a light appearing, guiding you out of that darkness. That light could be a video made possible by your support. As the Eternal Passenger Women Volunteer Team, with your help, we have already inspired many people to embrace Islam, wear hijab, and start praying. Now we want to create an Islamic youth center for women to change even more lives, inshallah. You can support this effort by clicking the Super Thanks button or donating to our Patreon, because we believe that changing one woman's life can shape the future of an entire generation.
Did you ever remind some maybe Christian ladies that Mary used to wear hijab?
Yes. My funniest incident of that is my son, when he was 4 years old, we're driving around. He said, Mom, there's a statue of a Muslim lady on that church. And I tell this to audiences and they laugh. They think it's cute. And they kind of go, oh, yeah. Without me saying, oh, Mary's covered. What about us? You don't have to put it in their face. When I tell them that story, they all laugh. Like, that's a little boy. Like, that's a Muslim lady statue. Why is she on a church? He sees the cross. He sees the statue. What would you like to tell the 18-year-old Noor, When I look back on my life, I just see that Allah's hand has been in my life every step I took. Because if I hadn't made these mistakes, if I hadn't gone there, if I didn't know that person, I wouldn't have ended up in New York in a coffee shop meeting an Egyptian who introduced me to Islam. Without all this, if I back up, all those steps were necessary for me to enter that coffee shop, which is hindsight. But for me, if you have the heart to be guided, Allah is going to guide you. So I don't think I would go back and tell the 18-year-old Noor to change anything. did you ever think of using your talent Islamically? That's a good question too, because a lot of Christians come to me. I actually stopped performing because I thought getting up on a stage in costumes and making it in front of a mixed audience was not appropriate for a Muslim woman, especially one who was going to wear hijab. So I left the business gradually, and I just thought that's the end of it, subhanAllah. But Allah had other ideas, and I worked with children. I worked with the New York City Opera Education Department, and I started telling the kids, making up stories or using the stories of the prophets for little kids, watering it down for them, and also making up songs. I would take the Western nursery rhymes and Islamize them, put them with Islamic text. And because I'm a musician, I have all these umpty years of training. And with my performance background, we also created a series called Quran for Little Muslims with the short stories that most children learn first. But these short stories are very deep and heavy. I thought, what way can I make a story around maybe one element in that surah that I can make appealing to children? Surah Al-Asr, a teacher says, I want you to see the 4 points, the 4 ayat of Surah Al-Asr, and I want you to enact them at home. The little boy goes home, he helps a lady crossing the street. He goes home, he encourages his mom who doesn't feel well. She's got a big dinner and she's hassled. And he tells her, you'll be fine, your cooking's great. His little sister's having difficulties learning how to skate. Instead of making fun of her, he helps her. You know, basically the 4 steps, and he went, I'm a winner. You know, I did the 4 steps of Surah Al-Asr. I'm a winner, without all the heavy meanings of it. Sometimes when we become Muslims, we think that what we did in the past maybe was more of a haram nature, or how will I use this Islamically? I have to leave this career path. Especially in the arts, we need Muslims who are talented in the arts. We need people that can do animation and filming and things like this, because we tend to have to go to the non-Muslims in their more haram industries, learn from them. And sometimes the Muslim gets pulled into that industry because there's a lot of money to be made. Whereas if you're working Islamically, it doesn't always pay that well. So we're trying to develop the Muslim. You need to go back and give your talents. So if you're in the arts, by all means, we need people to write books, stories. We need storytellers. We need more nasheed. We have some wonderful nasheeds, but it's not enough. There aren't enough genre yet. So don't leave your occupation, just get it in a halal way. Is there a companion whose story or character you feel closest to? If so, who is it? Is Khadija radiallahu anha. For everything she was before the Prophet, who she became with the Prophet ﷺ, I think she's very relatable to Western women. She was twice married, twice widowed. She was a businesswoman. She had inherited her husband's business. She ran the business. She had her caravan trade. Technically, the first Muslim, other than the Prophet, was Khadija. She was the first one to say, I have absolute confidence Allah intended you for this. He ran to whom from the cave? He ran trembling and fearful. Cover me, wrap me. And she was very confident. She took care of him. She nurtured him and assured him, who would he choose? No one but you. What a great wife. What a great team. And we all dream, to have a marriage like this, subhanAllah.
What are the manners that you observed in the Americans that really fits the Islamic etiquette?
Very outgoing, polite, clean. Clean except like in the bathroom, clean like we're clean. But cleanliness is very important to them. One of the historians says, like, they made us stand in line. We didn't.
Maybe fulfill the promises, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. In business and so forth, a lot of times I say the habits that they have as Westerners originally came from Islam. For example, there's an ayah, it's Surah Noor maybe, where when you enter the house from the front, you have to announce yourself. If there's no response after 3 announces, you go away. I think now, of course, in America, you never go anywhere. You knock the door, you call the person. Perhaps this was the first time that we said we need to just announce ourselves before we enter a house. You know, we think we created everything we think we created parks. Actually, no, parks and fountains came from us. But it's the assumption that the West did everything and we're the uncivilized, barbaric East. But when you look at the ethics and the morals, it's very Islamic. The ethics of the Christians has completely changed in morals. Now the morals are going out the window. Abortions are fine. The gender issues are fine. The things that we believe this is like no crossing, relations before and after marriage, during marriage are fine. Alcohol is not just about what's haram for you, it's the haram for the people around you. Smoking is not just bad for you, it's bad for the people around you. What would you say to those who think, if I become Muslim, I will be restricted, I won't have a fun life, I can't do sports or be involved in the arts? Yes, you can, of course you can, of course you can. Within reason, within the parameters that Allah gives you. Allah gives you everything in life, but with parameters. When you drive down the street, you have stoplights. When you cross the street, you have a light to follow. You have lanes in the road. The government of your country gives you parameters to follow for your safety, for the well-being of you and others. Allah gives you parameters for your safety and the well-being of others. That simple. Is there a funny situation where you found yourself doing something you said you would never do? I remember standing in Lincoln Center, which is the big hub of the New York Philharmonic, the Metropolitan Opera, New York City Opera, and I was standing there in winter and kind of spinning around saying, this is my home, this is where I belong, this is where I will perform. And just a couple years later, I was going with my father-in-law in Jordan to Taraweeh prayer, and I'm looking up at the big moon, I'm going, oh my goodness, who would have imagined? I became Muslim, I married a Palestinian man, I have a home in Jordan, I'm going to Taraweeh prayer in Ramadan. It was not that girl standing in, Lincoln Center could not have imagined where she'd end up not too many years later.
Thank you so much for your sincere answers. Inshallah, we're hoping to meet you again with another project, inshallah.
My absolute pleasure, inshallah. We learn from each other, and you're really doing a great service sharing our stories. The reverts too, we like our stories, but the born Muslims love these stories. It's inspiring, inshallah. Hopefully inspiring to make them want to do as we do, inshallah.